Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Spirit Pod.
Welcome back.
I'm Brittany.
I'm Anna, and we host a podcast all around mental health, addiction, substance abuse, recovery, sobriety, all the things. And we love bringing guests on who have powerful stories, who have things to share that can empower others. Today, we have Erica Spiegelman, who is our COO at New Spirit Recovery, has an incredible story herself, is a huge figure in the substance abuse area, empowerment coaching. But you know a lot more about this. So tell us about, what you do, what kind of work you do.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And it's so exciting that this pod exists and that this is a reality now. So I'm just honored to be here with you guys and so happy that we're all doing something to move along this narrative of, trying to help people in different ways, I think. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, whole intention for getting into this field, writing books, I call it teaching, counseling people, is to give people other tools besides just when I was getting sober 16 years ago, what was available to me was very basic, and there wasn't a lot around mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual self-care. And that is what really helped me, was that aspect of self-care. And I know people use that term loosely, self-care, but for me, it's so much more. It's just acknowledging these non-negotiables around how to take care of yourself, and not just take care of yourself with sleep and nutrition and things like that, but how do you take care of yourself when these thought habits come up that are unhealthy? Or how do you take care of yourself when there's an emotion that's so intense that you want to act out in some way, And so for me, it was a goal as I started to become a counselor and working at different treatment centers to really figure out as many tools as possible that people could use, because everybody's so different and unique. And we all have different backgrounds. We come from different family systems. We come from different cultures, places in the world. So what's going to work for somebody living in the mountains in Spain is not going to be working for somebody in the south of the United States. Just we have different narratives around everything. So that's kind of the intention of how I got into this. And now it's just growing and growing. And I have my newest book was a book on affirmations, and it was published last year, but it wasn't just about oh, you are beautiful, which is great, you are strong. Those are great affirmations, but it was really more about how do we go a little deeper and teach people that most of the time our choices are connected to our thoughts. Our self-esteem is connected to our thoughts, our mood, everything, right? So let's address that first. Why are we addressing other things first when it comes to recovery versus what's going on in your head? What are the stories, the narratives? How'd they get there? How can we get rid of them? How can we replace them if they're not healthy? That to me is super important. And so that's kind of my personal mission now. But it changes as time goes.
Yeah, we actually we were looking through your affirmation book.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yes,
thank you.
They really are.
I think that like what you said, getting to the root of things is really, really important, because if we don't, we just kind of skip over all this deep-seated stuff. But okay, so how long have you been sober?
So 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How did that, what was your early relationship with alcohol with? How did this kind of evolve for you?
So that's a great question. It started, I was 13 years old, maybe 12 years old.
Me too.
13.
Wait, that's so crazy.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe there's something to that we're all sitting here and it started then. That was enough time, it's been a long time. Yeah, I remember I was in 7th grade and I had a new friend who came to our school, and we went to her house, me and my other best friend, and she pulled out her grandmother's cigarettes, her grandmother lived with her, and a beer. And I was like, oh, my dad is a drinker. He drank around me all the time. So I was familiar with beer, but I was just always like, no way, that's forbidden. I don't, my mom, in my head since I was little was like, no drinking, no smoking. But I was a curious kid. And so anyway, I remember that moment. So I remember that day. That was the first time I smoked a cigarette and drank. And then, from there, I just think, we attune to peers that are into going through similar things emotionally, that have the tendency to act out or be more curious or want to try things, right? And so I became friendly with a group of kids where more partying, drinking, trying things. And so, I was going to Grateful Dead shows. In case anyone hears this, but doing, mushrooms at I was literally in 8th grade. It was insane, very early on. But it was it was amazing. I'll never forget those experiences. I went to 3 or 4 Dead shows. It was amazing to be in that parking lot and people hugging you. Just
that's awesome.
It just opened up this world of, I wanted to feel my parents divorced when I was 7, and I felt for me it was when I found a different way of being a different way of being. I'll just say it's not even about being messed up, fucked up. It's not that's what I liked. It was more of just wow, there's a spiritual world world. There's people that are loving. There's people that are, I just love life. And I felt like I was just so excited to feel more, because when I was younger, I was kind of told not to feel. Like I was upset by a lot of things when I was younger, and I was always told, like, put a smile on, everything's fine. And so I don't think I had that opportunity to release negative emotion. So with this, it was an opportunity to like feel all kinds of emotion. And I just remember that too. So yeah, that's kind of when it started.
How old were you when you got sober then?
I just turned 28.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So when was the moment that you had realized throughout this process that it had become like unmanageable for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I remember in high school as things progressed and I started going to raves and like the things changed that was going on, in terms of using. But I remember alcohol was always something that was for me, like my go-to. And I remember being in like college, like even freshman year in college, we were drinking every night. And I remember thinking like, this is going to be a problem. This is a problem, but this is going to be unmanageably a problem soon. Like eventually I knew it. I mean, intuitively, I knew it even in high school.
Wow.
Like, cause I was always looking forward to Friday when I had plans to go to the city and, we had plans to stay up all night and, like all of that. I remember just being like looking forward, just so excited for that. And I was like, that's kind of a problem. There was that voice that knew it was going to have to end one day. And then it just progressed after college. I mean, college, 4 years of drinking every day. And then I moved to New York City. And then that was every day too. Got earlier and earlier as the days went, and back to San Francisco. So yeah, by the end of that, my mom was like, you're not the same. You're not yourself. And I was depressed and a lot had changed. A lot had changed in my life. It went downhill very fast. So that was kind of like the impetus to get help. And, she'd asked me many times and I was in denial many times. And this went on for probably a year. And then eventually I surrendered and got help. Yeah.
And
then,
did you go to treatment?
Yes.
Okay. Just once?
One
or
time.
What's your experience with that? One time?
Yeah, one time.
Wow.
One and done. I was so ready. Like that last couple months, I remember sitting like on my stoop in San Francisco, like at 7 a.m, like shaking and being like, God, please help me. Like, how do I get out of this? Like, I really did not know how to get out of it. It was just like a
the
constant
misery.
loop. Yeah. So I was ready. I truly feel like that was honestly, one of the most helpful parts about it as staying sober was being ready, I mean, not everyone is. I mean, we're never like 100% ready, but for the most part, I was done. I was sick and tired of it.
See, I always say like I definitely had the gift of desperation because it was either that or I die. There was like no other option.
Right.
And I didn't get it on the first try, but
yeah. I think that like that willingness to get help is key.
Yeah.
And that does make the difference between like if you can get through this and overcome this and stay sober and maintain your wellness. But like if you don't want it, right? And if you're resistant, it doesn't stick. And that's like I went to treatment 3 times.
Yeah.
And the first 2
you weren't ready.
I felt forced into it and I didn't want it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to be sober. I was okay with where I was at, but the minute the third time, the minute I wanted it, success.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's true. It's amazing. And I feel for people that are like, but how do I get there? And it's like, you know what?
You gotta want it.
You gotta really
want it.
Yeah. And it's also maybe part of your path to do it 2 times or 3, know, and what do you learn in that? And like try and seek lessons from it instead of being so frustrated. And, it's hard though when you're hijacked by certain things, mental health is not good. And the actual addiction is like in the driver's seat that, you're not really yourself. I remember too being really soon after I was in treatment, like even there, the week or two, I mean, it was like 2 weeks into it, I was like, I'm going to become a counselor. Like I just like everything came to me and it was like, I don't know, I was just like, I felt like things clicked and I was just off to another race, which was like, I just felt like the minute I did get sober, I just was like, oh my God, I want like, how do I learn more about health and Buddhism and meditation and breath work? And I just started, it was like almost like that was my now obsession, not obsession, but like that became like.
It's that purpose.
It
drives you
and
so
interest.
much.
Yeah. And like I felt fulfilled by learning all that stuff. So it was cool.
Do you feel like that helped you like maintain sobriety and like maintain your wellness, just having that like core purpose of like, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm meant to do, this is where my passion is?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was part of it. I mean, I went back to school at UCLA shortly after I got out of treatment. I moved to LA. I was enrolled at UCLA, went through that program. And definitely becoming a counselor in this field helped. And also being a clinician at different treatment treatment centers, like 2 years into my sobriety, I was counseling people, you know? And so I had to walk the walk, and I had to like show up every morning feeling like I was in alignment, obviously, with what I was doing, you know? Like,
it held you accountable.
It held me very much accountable. So I tell people that too. It's like, they're like, and I didn't go to meetings, and I mean, I did when I was in treatment. It was a 12-step treatment program. So I learned about, I always say, like, I felt like I had a class on AA and that, and it was really helpful. And I went to meetings, and I learned, and I felt the love and like vibrance of the community in Palm Springs where I was, and such a great recovery community. It just didn't stick. And I think, you know, for me, it wasn't for me per se, but I appreciate it to this day. I respect it. And I think it's worked for millions of people, and I've seen it work. And I also was every day with other therapists that were, most of them were in recovery. I was in school. I was meeting new friends with people that were in recovery early on. So I felt like I had
that community,
a community in a different way.
Wait, where'd you go in Palm Springs?
Betty Ford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went to Michael's house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I've referred a lot of people there.
Okay. Yeah. They have a great recovery community out there.
They do. Yeah. Those Michael. Yeah. That was like the similar community.
Yes.
Of that area. Yeah. So it was cool. It was cool to develop, I think,
Were you single at this time? When did you meet your husband?
Oh, I met him much later.
Okay.
I had my whole 30s basically to myself.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Dated a lot, but no, nothing stuck. Yeah. I met him at 37.
Okay.
And I got sober like around 28, right? So it was like,
you got some time in between.
I had a decade to kind of lay that foundation of really healthy solitude. Like, that's what I learned. That's why I write about solitude so much, because it was like the most beautiful time looking back of like being by myself. I would walk around Santa Monica. I'd go take a run or walk around in like the morning, go to farmers markets, like spend the whole day by myself. And I started to learn who I was, my thoughts. I was able to like process life without all the other stuff that I was used to for like my whole life since I was 13, right? That distraction of other nonsense. So it was a really nice time to like just be and learning how to be with myself. And it was like the most precious time looking back. It was a good chapter.
So you wrote the book Rewired. Tell us about your book.
Yeah. So I was working at a treatment center at the time. It was a very big, well-known one. And I was they had like 35 clients. They had 3 houses. It was a massive company. And my BA in literature. So like when I went to college, my undergraduate, I studied literature and writing because I had always enjoyed writing. So even like when I was 5 years old, I still have my first journal, like little journal I would write in.
Gosh.
You know, or was it called a diary? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It had a lock.
Yes, I had one of those
all
too.
those lock diaries. That takes me back.
And I was literally, I mean, maybe I was like 6. I just learned to write, however old that was, 7. But so it's funny how everything came full circle. I was working there, and I started, you know, my boss at the time said, you know, you're getting really good feedback on your groups. Can you do more groups? And so I was like, oh my God, this is like a lot. There's like 30 people in these groups. It wasn't like 6 people, you know?
Wow.
And at this center, people were staying for 6 months. Some people, you know, long periods of time. We even had someone there for a year. So I felt like even if, you know, I just didn't want them to have the same material over and over. So, and I like to write. So I was like writing like at night at home, I'd be write like a group on the things that I think resonated with me in my sobriety, right? And so I start writing groups. Okay, this group on authenticity, this group on boundaries, this group on communication and cognitive distortions, things I was learning that were helping me. And also I'd bring that information in my sessions with clients. So I'd be like, oh, you like this? Okay, cool. So I'll write a group on it. And I started writing like all these, it was like each like group was like 2 or 3 sheets with questions, some a little bit of reading. And I started creating like a binder of it just so I had because I knew I wasn't going to stay there forever, but so I could, if I ever wanted to do groups, I'd have the material. And then it dawned on me after a couple of years, like, I really want to share this on like a greater level and I want to write a book. And so I remember being in New York, I was visiting a friend of mine and I told her out loud, I was like, Courtney, I'm going to write a book. She to this day is like, remember when you told me that? We were walking in Union Square and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And so from that point on, it was really helpful to have all the groups because they became like chapters. I kind of went off of all those groups I created and like what would be important for me to share with people. And then it took me a while to figure out, like, I wanted the title to have something to do with authenticity because that was really important to me at the time. And then eventually I was like, that summer after the book was almost done, I was talking to a family friend and he's like, you're basically talking about like rewiring. And I was like, that's it.
Rewired.
That's the one.
Yeah, rewired. Yeah. So, and I'm not a neuroscientist, but it was more about the rewiring of our pathways through our habits and our routines. Just like we create bad habits easily, there's pathways literally form. And then I started like looking, I grew up around Stanford. So Stanford, I knew some people there and I was like, do you have any studies on this? Like, you know, so again, it's just kind of like, just so that there was like a little bit of proof that that's true, that we can create new pathways and the neuroplasticity of everything.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Anyway, but so just so people didn't challenge me, you know, as an author. And anyway, so it was cool. And it came together just like I knew exactly what the chapters I wanted. And it really was from like a place of like, you know, deep inside myself. Like
you put it,
I just, everything that helped me, I put out there. It wasn't anything that I have not, that didn't resonate with my journey, you know? So that was it. And Rewired was published. It was not an easy journey to find a publisher. You know, people ask me like, how do you find a publisher?
Difficult. I hear that's difficult.
It's really difficult. I asked everyone I knew, contacts, like, do you know anybody in the publishing field, health and wellness? I looked up like Hayes House, you know, like Louise Hayes has, you know, like a spiritual publisher house, but she's huge. They have like a lot of authors that are really well known. And I submit, like there's on every website, there's a place to submit your manuscript. So I'd submit the manuscripts or whatever they needed. No. And then finally, that's why you cannot give up, people.
Yeah.
You know, just never give up. Finally, I talked to another person. She's like, I have a friend who was published by this publishing house. And anyway, the distributor is Penguin Random House. So it was a bigger distributor. So anyway, it worked out. And so Hatherley Press has been my publishing partner and my distributor is Penguin Random House. So it's great because now the books are all in Barnes & Noble's because Penguin and Barnes & Noble's work together. So it's just been a blessing. Like it's been great, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah. To be published is different than self-published. You don't make money as a published author, just so anybody that's out there that wants to write a book knows that. Yeah, you don't. But that's okay. That wasn't what that was about for me.
Right.
They basically kind of own your books. And you own the copyright, but in terms of like financial aspect of it. But, you know, self-published authors don't really get on the big news shows or like there's so many you know, but you can probably be financially a little bit more flexible. So it's just interesting if anybody's out there like curious about the differences. But I had a PR lady that was helping me at the time tell me, she's like, if someone's going to give you the opportunity to be like traditionally published, take it because it's a business card. And she was right. And so ever since then though, my private practice and just speaking events and things came to me because I was a published author.
Yeah.
And so it's
that's what Michelle was saying, our last guest, you know, Michelle. So she was saying the exact same thing. She's in Barnes and Noble too.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
Yeah.
You learn so much though.
Yeah. It's an interesting, that was like a whole nother chapter, like the book being published and like all of that whirlwind and doing a lot of news shows. And I hired a lot of PR people and I was like adamant to get on like all these shows, which I did. I was in New York and on Fox and this and that. And it was exciting. But then you realize too, like, doesn't move the ticker per se. It's like great for exposure and just for life experience. But
yeah.
So then you decide how much time do you want to give that.
Right.
And how much energy do you want to give that. So yeah, I feel like there's been so many little chapters and then obviously having like met my husband and then having kids now and just different things in the past decade and a half.
I've been working on writing a book, but my husband and I, we decided we wanted to write a children's book first about addiction, you know, that parents could give to, you know, their kids or their nieces or their nephews or their grandkids, like when a parent goes away to get help for treatment and just to kind of help explain.
That's going to be so helpful.
Addiction better to kids. So yeah, we had it almost finished last year and then we got busy, but because I remember looking for books like that or kind of even right when I got sober, but there are some out there, but there's not a whole ton. And I feel like for each, like there's different ages and how it's appropriate to explain addiction to kids. So that's what we've been working on, but I'm excited about it. That's like a goal. And then obviously one day I do want to write a memoir because this life just keeps getting crazier and crazier. I swear.
You've had a ride. We've all had some stories.
I think there's a book inside everybody.
Oh, for sure. It's just a matter of if you want to share it too.
True.
Like some people don't want to.
Right. Absolutely.
Because I mean, for so many reasons, like stigma and all those things. But I think that's awesome that you have yours and also that you got to incorporate like this program into New Spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is amazing.
I mean, my book isn't a memoir, you know. There's like a little bit of, I always share a little bit of how I relate to each chapter. And there's, in each chapter too, there's like a case, like somebody I worked with to kind of relate how solitude is important or how being authentic is important. So it was like a mix, which was kind of, for me, because I don't love being totally transparent with my personal life. Like, so I do. I'm like in the middle, I think.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, vulnerability is just hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I'm like not ashamed to share anything. If you ask me anything, I'm an open book, but I just felt like writing a book, it was just different. Like I feel like you're in the public eye more, or like you have like
mine's like more my life.
Your life, yeah.
Yes.
Which is cool.
Like every
I like
detail of my life.
Yeah.
And then Anna's more a little bit more kind of similar to you, where it's more like educational, like and I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get there.
Well,
but yeah.
It's both are
different.
great though.
You need
like,
both though. Like you need those stories.
Yeah.
Like
people so relate.
they need
like,
to hear it.
Oh
Yes.
What
Yeah.
you're doing is amazing.
Your
Aw, thanks,
experience, like your lived experience, is equally important.
Absolutely.
And informational, than sitting here and teaching. Like teaching's amazing, but also you can teach through your story and share information through that. And like, this is what worked for me. This is what didn't work for me. Like you're equally making impact in that way. I think just like the difference between having it on paper and being social media people is we get a lot of slack.
Yeah.
People are so mean, but you got to remember your purpose and why you're doing it. And the mission is to bring awareness and create conversation.
But just as equally as you say, people would say to me as the author, like, oh, like on Amazon, I'll look like at reviews, right? And most of them are nice reviews, but there's been some that are like, well, she hasn't been to the depths of, and I'm like, why did I not talk about that enough? Like, it's like if you don't share enough,
making comparisons,
then, how does she know what,
Yeah.
And then there were some people that like wrote back like, she is recovered, and she, it's like,
people,
you
they
gotta
have so
like
many opinions on your story.
You just gotta like know that like when your heart, I always tell my clients, it's like your heart's in the right place, your intentions every morning are like aligned with who you are and your morals and your values, and like that's it, let it all go. Like everyone doesn't matter.
That's how I sleep every night.
Yeah.
It's just
You
like
have
knowing
to.
that like deep down I'm a good person. I have good intentions. I have a good heart.
Yes.
I make a lot of mistakes. Like I'm not perfect.
The only difference is that people are watching your mistakes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're not any different than any other person. You're just, it gets broadcasted.
That's true. I was going to say that when New Spirit started, so New Spirit is obviously a treatment center that opened up in Encino, California about 2 months ago. Could you believe it?
A baby still.
Crazy.
I know.
It's such a baby. I feel like it's been a year. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's only been 2 months. No, it's an amazing opportunity to like get the Rewired program, but also just to get, amazing facilitators and humans like you guys and people to have another kind of, I think, platform or another way to help others. Their scales are different. Scales different in social media, scales different in a 6-bedroom house, 12-bedroom house, whatever but at least like for me, and I think with you guys too, it's like if we help one person, that's the goal, right?
It's worth it.
Yep.
So it was when I met my business partners and they said, oh, we're going to open up a treatment center here in LA. Would you want to be part of it? And we can have the Rewired program kind of at the center of it. It was the right opportunity. I'd been approached a couple times I actually opened up an outpatient center once with some people called Rewired. And this is not even called Rewired. This is called New Spirit Recovery because I just don't need to fully immerse that as the brand of it. But yeah, so it's a good, I think it's a great way to kind of have my program, which now is an online program, the Rewired program. I created like an online educational program on Kajabi, which teaches people 15 modules, and there's videos, and there's one day I'll show it to you guys. But
I didn't know you had that.
That's kind of what the program is.
And it kind of goes through the book, like in an online version?
Yeah, I the modules, I pick kind of a couple different ones. There's some similar ones, like it starts always with authenticity for me, and like communication and self-love and, spiritual self-care, all these other things. But I filmed a bunch of different videos. So it starts with like a video, and then it goes through a reading and then questions. And so then like a colleague I knew introduced me to a company called Adovo about 1.5 years ago. And Adovo is an educational company that has tablets. And these tablets are the only ones allowed in like 305 prisons and jails and juvenile detention centers. And on the tablets, there's different subjects that incarcerated learners can learn. And that's like vocational skills. There's like different courses on writing and math. And one of them is substance abuse and recovery.
Oh, that's amazing.
Because 80% of people that are incarcerated are there due to drug and alcohol problems, or their choices were
80%.
80%.
Wow.
That's a high percentage.
It's super high.
I mean, I believe it.
That it's not that they're like actively addicts, but
Right.
that they're involved. There was involvement around that, right? So that's super high. And so this company Adovo, I gave them the Rewired program, and then to get back data to see like how would this do? And so we got the data back a couple months ago, and 20,000 2,000 incarcerated learners have used the program. At least they've completed like 3 modules. There's been a bunch. So I could see now the data, and like it's just really special and amazing to like that program. Like that's all it ever is like, thank God, like give it, like I just, so for me now, like really, and I for years have gotten letters from people in jail because they have the Rewired workbook in a lot of jails. I just got recently a counselor, he's on the U.S. naval ship. They have substance abuse, like trying to, because people that I guess in the Navy will go out and like there's a lot of alcohol instances like where there's things that go on. They need to start to like educate around that. So they're using the Rewired workbook on these naval ships. So it's like, it's just cool through the years to like hear what communities and demographics people are learning, you know, now finally. Like have something to give them, to teach them. And so anyway, that's all what this has become, kind of like, you know, trying to reach, I think, harder populations too.
And I just love that Rewired is like different than 12-step program, you know, because I feel like a lot of treatment centers are 12-step based and it's not for everyone. So I love that Rewired is, and it can be for anyone. It's just a different approach to it. So.
Hopefully more around the self-love, like the foundation of self-love. No shame in it, you know. There's I will say like there is some shame with like 12-step stuff like that. I do find myself feeling I've experienced it
bad a lot, you know. So where this is more kind of going the other route.
And I mean, if for anyone listening to, on my website at ericaspiegelman.com, there's a free manual. So another community called I Am Sober, it's an app actually, they started Rewired meetings, a couple of big offshoots of it. And so there's 2 Rewired meetings a week on Mondays and Fridays on Zoom. And I always put the information up. It's on my website too, but that's separate. So they use the manual. So it's which I've created with a bunch of people that are using it. So we kind of collaborated. And so there's like 15 weeks of like, hi, I'm Anna. Welcome to the Rewired meeting. And this meeting will like literally anybody can download it, print it out, and you could start your own community meeting.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's so they've started that like in like the San
Mateo
Mateo
meetings on Mondays. I didn't know that.
But
I just wing it. I'm just
which is great. But some people like I feel like don't like really know what to say, and like and they're intimidated. There's new people coming on, and so that's available too. So I just want to like give as many resources to people if they wanted to start their own meeting. There's like someone in guy that follows me. He has one in like I think he's in Bosnia and he's doing that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know there's people reach out. It's like it's great.
So cool.
Yeah, it's great. So
we're reaching so many people that way too, when it's just more accessible.
Yes. And you know what? Once in a while, I mean, to me, like, yes, I think energetically we need to be compensated in ways too as professionals in this field. You know, people are always like, well, should therapists really get paid? I'm like, yeah, this takes a lot of energy, right? But then in the same breath too, like there's also like, I think for me, just like there's also information I could share that can be free too, you know? And so it's like, there's both. And I want to be able to do both, you know? But that's another whole subject matter of, being a professional in this field and the challenges that comes with.
How, you know, because you have a huge part in New Spirit, how would you say that, you know, New Spirit recovery stands out from other places or other like standard approaches?
You know, New Spirit is definitely a unique special treatment center because we really are like our truest intention is for people to learn how to walk out of there and have tools like that. We are not just giving you, you know, sending you to a meeting or giving you a worksheet and being like, you know, do this in your free time. Like we have facilitators coming that are teaching like music therapy, art therapy, CBT groups on like cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT. I mean, we're trying to cover every aspect, like cooking classes so that people could like actually have life skills when they leave. We have a nutritionist. She's much more than just a nutritionist, but how to nourish yourself from like the inside out. We have a yoga teacher coming twice a week and we're doing sound baths and teaching meditation. So for me, like, again, it's that 360-degree outlook on like, how do we teach people what is treatment, you know, but from a holistic point of view. And so again, the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual self-care. New Spirit Recovery is teaching everyone tools so that they can create their own program when they leave. Like I always say to the clients at New Spirit, as long as you leave here and you have something to feed yourself, like feed your spirit, feed your mental health, feed your emotional health, and feed your physical health, then you will feel proud. You will feel great every day. You know, you will sleep well, you will wake up, you know, and just those routines routines is really what I think helps people stay on a sober path. So that's why I think we're unique, because that's like, we are truly putting so much attention on that. A lot of centers I've been to, the techs do all the groups, or the behavioral health techs, they do all the groups. They send them to meetings, they send them to a gym, and that's it for the day.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, and I'm not calling out anybody.
Yeah.
I think that they work, those programs are fantastic too. But I wanted to do this differently. And so did Sean and Zach, my business partners. So we were like, we are going to bring in facilitators that are experts in their field. And we're going to teach our clients what it is to be well-rounded, to have hobbies, to have things that inspire them.
New healthy habits.
Yeah. Like, I mean, yesterday we had Rock to Recovery there. And these guys were they were in a band. Like they were musicians. They are musicians, but they were like in touring bands. Like, okay. And this guy's standing there and he's putting like he's setting up the guitar and the mic and all this stuff in the Zen room. And I heard all the kids just laughing, jamming out, like learning how to like play guitar. Like one was learning how to play piano with like the keyboard.
That's so fun.
It's just so cool. And it's like, I know that's not like therapy per se, like traditional what you think, but we also have traditional therapy.
Yeah.
We have a clinical director who's an MFT. We have, we have that one-on-one therapy as well. But also, why not bring some fun? Why not bring some like life to recovery? Like, do we always have to be so serious,
Well, and also you got to learn how to have fun and have spirit like outside of your addiction. Yeah. Because that's like something a lot of people struggle with, is they're like, well, I rely on these things to have fun and enjoy life. Yeah. But like there's so much more, and I feel like teaching those aspects is equally as important.
And that's why it's like new spirit. Like in my book Rewired, I call it a whole soul makeover, and that's just what I said in the moment. I remember writing that line when I was at home, and it kind of is that. It's like you do have to make over yourself in a lot of ways in terms of creating a new identity. Like actually a client said to me yesterday, like, because I don't necessarily call myself an addict today. Like I've had experience with addiction, right? It almost ruined my life, and I'll never say anything but that. But I'm a healthy woman today. Like that's how I see myself identity wise. That's what I want to project to the world. And for me, language in my mind, my own self-talk is really important. So that was one aspect of AA that I did not like, and I'll say it openly, to stand up every day. Like I was 3 years in, like I'm going to stand up and keep being, I'm an alcoholic and these are all the things I've done wrong. And this is all. No, I'm done. Like I am moved past that. Like, okay, I'm not saying it didn't happen. Right. And I'm not forgetting about it by any means. Like I always remember things because it helps me stay on this path. But today I'm a healthy woman who has made healthy choices in her life, healthy actions. I'm proud of the way I conduct my life now. So why am I going to stand up and put that energy out there? For me, it wasn't helpful. Like it really messed with my mind. And I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. Like, so I always tell people, like, if AA is important to you, go to the meetings. Don't have to say that. There is no rule book. No one's going to like arrest you. Right. Yeah. But again, you just have to like be aware people will judge and like, or just don't be part of that community. I don't know. But for me, like that was really, for me, I get very like fired up about it because I don't want someone to tell me I can't say what I need to say in order to stay on my healthy path. You know?
Yeah.
It looks different for everyone. And I think that's like such an important perspective too. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be that standard way.
No. And if you don't conform, that doesn't mean you failed. Like that's also, I've had to deal with so many people just be so down about themselves because they didn't do what the community want them to do or whoever. And it's, it's like, this is your life and let's like think outside the box.
When we do introductions in my meeting, we always say, like, if you're new here, please introduce yourself and welcome you. Feel free to identify yourself however you may want, whether that be an alcoholic, addict, sober, curious, in recovery, woman, whatever you want, because I do see that fine line. I think for me, personally, I think it's very important for me to remember that I am an alcoholic and I always am. Yeah. But I felt those feelings too, you know, when I say it. And it is confusing for other people too, because they're like, wait, but aren't you sober? And I'm like, yeah, but, then
and I think they're different like parts of my life. It's changed. But I always say I'm recovered. To me, like that resonates more with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Alcoholic in recovery. That's what I usually will say too.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I feel too, like at a certain point, and I don't know, maybe because it's been over a decade of like, I don't want to let that define me too, even though that's all I do every day. That's who I'm with I just don't want to be limited to just being that, like an alcoholic. Like that's not who I am. Like that's not who I am altogether. Like I have so many more identities that I feel like I relate to and not just that. And I just want people to know, like, don't let that just be your identity. Yeah. It's like, like
same with mental health
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis, you know?
Identifying yourself with a diagnosis.
right.
All those things are equally damaging if you're like, well, this is
Right.
what I have. This is who I am. That's how I'm
Right.
going to be. Like, it's so
Totally.
limiting.
Totally.
And it keeps people stuck without, they don't realize that it keeps you stuck.
Yeah. So I think the awareness is just good to share with people. Just stay aware of like how things make you feel. If you're not growing and evolving, that's what evolution is, another chapter in my book required. It's like I felt to me like so many times in my life I've been stuck in a rut due to like being stuck by a label or a role, or even as a child I had a role in my family, like a typical family role, right? And it kept me stuck. I think that's what propelled me into like an unhealthy path in a sense, because I was always had to be like the pleaser and the happy one and the one that fixed things and the one and I just think in general in life, like to be aware of the role you play and just make sure you stay aware of it. Like, is it serving you? Does it bring you joy? Does it is it hindering your health? Is it causing negative consequences? Like, to ask yourself that is important too.
Yeah.
Because then you could be stuck in a rut and you'd be like, hey, I realize I'm stuck in a rut. I got to shake things up. I got to do things differently and change and evolve and not be scared to make changes, because we get so comfortable like in our little bubbles.
Such good advice. I think a lot of people are really going to benefit from that, and just hearing your story and hearing, the things you've learned. Before we wrap up, do you have any advice for maybe someone listening who wants to get help and is struggling and doesn't know kind of where to start?
Yeah. I mean, I think depending on the severity of their suffering, I think asking for help, number one, is like one of the hardest things to do. And for so many reasons, a lot of the times it's the narrative of like, I have to figure it out myself and they're going to judge me and, whatever it is, the fears that come up. But ask for help, please. Like, ask someone who you feel safe with, ask someone you trust, call a therapist that you maybe listen to their podcast, read their book, a counselor, anybody, like go source out somebody and ask for help first, because that person will probably help guide the way. And then secondly, I mean, treatment to me, like if there's so many different treatment centers, they take all kinds of insurance, you'll find something, and some don't even take insurance. You can get a bed, that people, I know a center that gives beds, but trying to get treatment, to me, I can't, like I've seen people struggle like the long and short path or the short and long path. Like I've had clients that like don't get treatment and like I'm still talking to them 10 years later, like, or get treatment, like just like, let's go, let's try it. Like, even if you're not try it, you will gain stuff from it. It will get you out of your unhealthy environment into a safe place where you don't have access to your drug of choice. You don't have access to the people that are keeping you kind of stuck, right? So for me, like, I just really believe strongly in treatment. And if you can't do that, seek out counseling, therapy, peer support. There's peer support therapists. Like if peer to peer really helps too. Joining meetings online. Thank God these days we have access to that.
Yeah, there are so many resources now, so many more than there.
So many. I mean, these online meetings too, you don't have to put on your camera. Like I have a client that has literally changed her life in so many beautiful ways by just attending online meetings and like getting a sponsor on these online meetings. She has a community of friends now she met, and they all did a trip together. Like, it's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, that's what the girls in ours do. It's been incredible.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of more resources, but there's hope. Anybody that's listening, there's hope. If we can do it, you can do it.
Absolutely.
Never lose faith in that, I think is the most important thing.
Well, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you guys for having
all of
me.
This.
Thank you,
I
Erica. It was so great talking with you.
Thank you guys.
Again, this is New Spirit Recovery. Yes. So if anyone listening needs support, if you have a loved one who needs support, you can find our resources at newspiritrecovery.com. We have a team ready with open arms. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
And if we can help, we refer people out to very well vetted places too that will provide the same level of care that we would provide too. So don't ever worry about that. Just reach out to us. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Yeah, let us know how we can support you.
Yep. Stay tuned for some more stories.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.